The glass was an inch from his lips when Paulette Martins decided to die. Not literally, not yet. But the moment she opened her mouth, the moment she broke the first rule of the Obsidian Room, the staff were invisible, she signed her own death warrant. Ji-hoon Kang sat in the velvet shadows of the VIP lounge, a man who commanded fear with a glance. The whiskey in his hand glowed amber under dim lighting. Behind him, his younger brother Ji-suk leaned back in his chair, all easy confidence, waiting for the poison to work. Paulette had seen Ji-suk lace that decanter, seen him crush the vial in the coat room where he thought no one was watching. She knew what would happen if Ji-hoon drank, and she knew what would happen to her if she spoke. But silence has a price, too. She leaned in, pulse roaring in her ears, and whispered 5 words that would shatter everything. "Your drink is poisoned, sir." Ji-hoon's hand stopped. His eyes cut to hers sharp, lethal, searching. For 3 beats of her terrified heart, the world held its breath. Then, he set the glass down, calm, controlled, believing. Ji-suk smiled wider, oblivious that his invisible witness had just become his executioner. 5 words cost Paulette her safety. But staying silent would have cost her something she couldn't afford to lose the person she'd fought 6 years to become. To understand why she'd risk it all for a stranger, we go back 1 month. Back to when she was just trying to survive long enough to graduate. The Obsidian Room, West Hollywood, Los Angeles. It's the kind of place that doesn't advertise. No neon signs, no Yelp reviews. Just a brushed steel door on Sunset Boulevard, between a Michelin-starred sushi bar and a private art gallery that's only open by appointment. Inside, the air smells like leather, expensive cigars, and power. Marble floors catch the reflection of crystal chandeliers. Private booths line the walls, separated by frosted glass and velvet curtains. The kind of place where CEOs, foreign investors, and men like Ji-hoon Kang come when they want discretion more than they want witnesses. The staff here understand one thing. You are invisible. You pour drinks, you clear plates, you vanish. This is where Paulette Martins worked 4 nights a week, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, 7 p.m. to 2 a.m., serving men who moved millions with a handshake and settled disputes with a phone call. And for Paulette, those shifts were just one piece of an exhausting, brutal puzzle. She was 3 months away from the California bar exam, 3 months from finishing what she'd been clawing toward for 6 years. 6 years of a schedule that would have broken most people. Morning classes at UCLA, law, constitutional law, evidence, legal writing. Afternoons spent in the library, case briefs, piling up faster than she could read them. Evenings at the Obsidian Room, smiling politely, while men who controlled the city's underworld barely looked at her face. Late nights, studying in her studio apartment in Koreatown, the one with thin walls, and a shower that only worked if you held the handle just right. Coffee from the 7-Eleven on the corner, because Starbucks was a luxury she couldn't justify. Her mother helped however she could, working double shifts as a home health aide, picking up overnight cases when the pay was better, making sure Paulette had one less thing to worry about. Her younger sister, still in community college, looked at her like proof the dream still worked. That if you sacrificed enough, pushed hard enough, you could actually escape. The bar exam wasn't just about letters after her name. It was about security, respect, the ability to finally help her family instead of just surviving. She was so close, 3 months close. And then on a Tuesday night in early September, she met the man who would put all of it at risk. September 10th. A warm Los Angeles evening, the kind where the smog catches the sunset and paints the sky bruised purple. Paulette was assigned to Section C, the VIP lounge reserved for regulars who valued privacy above everything. Her manager handed her the night's seating chart without looking up. Table 6, 2 guests, Korean businessmen. Keep the Yamazaki 18 flowing, stay out of their way. The name on the reservation, Kang. She'd heard whispers about the Kang brothers. Everyone had. Ji-hoon, the older one, cold, methodical. the kind of man who spoke 3 languages and never raised his voice because he didn't need to. Ji-suk, the younger, charming, volatile, always in his brother's shadow but smiling like it didn't bother him. Import, export, the reservation notes said. Which in a city like Los Angeles could mean almost anything. When Paulette entered the booth that first night, Ji-hoon Kang sat with the kind of stillness that radiated control. Tailored black suit, no tie, hair swept back. He took business calls in Korean clipped, efficient conversations where his tone never shifted but somehow still commanded the room. Ji-suk sat across from him, all energy and charm. Designer watch catching the light, expensive cologne that smelled like cedar and ambition. He joked with the other servers, remembered their names, tipped well. He looked like the fun brother. The approachable one. Paulette kept her observations professional, poured their whiskey, cleared their plates, noted the way Ji-hoon's eyes tracked movement in the room, not paranoid, just aware. Noted the way Ji-suk's smile never quite reached his eyes when he looked at his brother. Nothing unusual, just 2 powerful men navigating their world. Except, over the next 4 weeks, September 10th, 12th, 17th, 19th, 24th, 26th, October 1st, Paulette started noticing something that didn't make sense. Ji-hoon was changing. Small things, the kind most people wouldn't notice. He looked more tired each visit. The sharpness in his eyes dulled slightly. Once, during the September 24th reservation, she saw his hand tremble as he lifted his glass just for a second, but enough. Ji-suk hovered closer, more attentive, ordered for his brother, adjusted the napkin on his lap, like a concerned sibling, caring for someone fragile. The other servers smiled and said how lucky Ji-hoon was to have such a devoted brother. Paulette stayed quiet, but something about the pattern felt wrong. And then, on the night of October 1st, everything shattered. October 1st, 9:47 p.m. Paulette was carrying a tray of empty glasses back to the service station when she heard it, the soft clink of crystal against metal, coming from the hallway that led to the private coat room. She slowed her steps. The hallway was supposed to be empty. Guests didn't use that entrance. It was staff only, a narrow corridor lined with employee lockers and cleaning supplies. Through the gap in the partially open door, she saw him. Ji-suk stood with his back to her, shoulders tense beneath his tailored jacket. In his hand, a small glass vial, the kind used for essential oils or expensive cologne. He held it over Ji-hoon's personal decanter, the one the staff kept separate because he only drank Yamazaki 18 and only from that specific bottle. Paulette's breath caught. Ji-suk crushed the vial between his fingers. Fine powder dissolved into the amber liquid. He swirled the decanter once, twice, watching the whiskey catch the dim overhead light. Then he tucked the broken glass into his pocket, smoothed his jacket, and turned toward the door. Paulette moved, fast. She ducked into the supply closet, 3 feet away, heart slamming against her ribs, praying he hadn't seen her. His footsteps passed, confident, unhurried. She waited 30 seconds, 60. When she finally stepped back into the hallway, her hands were shaking so badly she had to set the tray down on the floor. She'd just watched a man poison his own brother, not with violence, not with a gun or a knife, with something quiet, something that would look like natural causes when Ji-hoon collapsed in his penthouse tomorrow morning. A heart attack, a stroke. Tragic, but not suspicious. Paulette pressed her back against the cold tile wall and tried to think. She could report it, call the police, tell someone. But who? The LAPD didn't exactly rush to investigate whispers from waitresses about men like the Kangs. And if she was wrong, if there was some explanation she hadn't considered, she'd lose this job. Lose the income that kept her mother's prescriptions filled and her sister's tuition paid. Worse, if she was right and went public, Ji-suk would know. He'd know someone saw. And men like him didn't leave witnesses breathing. But if she stayed silent, she'd watch Ji-hoon Kang die tonight, slowly, deliberately, while she stood by and did nothing. Her grandmother's face flashed through her mind. 16 years gone, but the memory still sharp, a medication error at the nursing home. A nurse too intimidated to question the doctor's orders. Paulette had sat in that hospital room, watching her grandmother slip away, and made herself a promise. She would never stay silent when she saw something wrong. Not ever. She picked up the tray, smoothed her apron, walked back into the VIP lounge, where Ji-hoon and Ji-suk sat, laughing over something on Ji-suk's phone. The decanter sat on the table between them, waiting. Paulette had maybe 20 minutes before Ji-hoon poured himself another glass. 20 minutes to decide if she valued her safety more than a stranger's life. She chose. Paulette refilled their water glasses with hands that no longer shook. Fear had a way of crystallizing into focus when you stopped fighting it. Ji-hoon glanced up. For the first time in 4 weeks, he actually looked at her, not through her, not past her, at her, dark eyes sharp, despite the fatigue that had been creeping into his features. "Thank you," he said. His voice was quiet, controlled, the kind of tone that made people lean in to hear him. She nodded, stepped back, waited. Ji-suk was scrolling through his phone, that easy smile still in place. "Hyung, one more drink before we head out." Hyung, older brother. The words sounded affectionate, respectful. Ji-hoon reached for the decanter. Paulette moved without thinking. She leaned in close, too close for a server, close enough that her breath brushed his ear, and whispered 5 words that would either save his life or end hers. "Your drink is poisoned, sir." His hand froze. The decanter hovered an inch above his glass. For 3 seconds, the world stopped. Ji-hoon didn't look at her, didn't turn his head, but she felt the shift in him, the sudden, lethal focus of a predator recognizing a threat. Then he set the decanter down, leaned back in his seat, laughed at something Ji-suk said, the sound smooth and unbothered. "Actually, I think I've had enough tonight. Early meeting tomorrow." Ji-suk's smile didn't falter. "You're getting old, Hyung. Can't keep up anymore. Maybe." Ji-hoon stood, straightened his cuffs. "Let's go." As they walked past her toward the exit, Ji-hoon's eyes caught hers in the reflection of the frosted glass partition. A single glance. Brief, burning. He believed her. Paulette's shift ended at 2 a.m. She changed out of her uniform in the staff locker room, pulled on her UCLA hoodie and jeans, and stepped into the cool October night. The parking lot was nearly empty, just her beat-up Honda Civic and a few other staff cars scattered under flickering streetlights. She was halfway to her car when the black SUV pulled up beside her. The back door opened. A man stepped out. Not Ji-hoon, not Ji-suk. Someone else tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a suit that looked like it had been tailored in a country where labor was cheap and quality was everything. Miss Martins. His English was perfect, barely touched by an accent. Mr. Kang would like a word. Paulette's keys dug into her palm. "I'm just heading home." It wasn't a request. She looked at the SUV. Tinted windows, engine running. She could scream, run. But the parking lot was empty, and the nearest security camera was 40 feet away, pointed at the building entrance. She got in the car. The SUV drove for 20 minutes, winding up into the Hollywood Hills, where houses clung to cliff sides, and privacy meant gates that cost more than most people's mortgages. They stopped in front of a modern estate, all glass and steel and sharp angles that caught the city lights below. The guard at the gate waved them through without a word. Inside, the house was cold. Not temperature. Atmosphere. Marble floors. Minimalist furniture. Floor-to-ceiling windows, overlooking Los Angeles, like a kingdom laid out for inspection. Ji-hoon stood in the center of the living room, still wearing his suit from dinner, jacket discarded over the back of a leather chair. When Paulette entered, he turned. Up close, without the dim lighting of the obsidian room, she could see him clearly. The exhaustion carved into the lines around his eyes, the tension in his jaw, the way he held himself, like a man who'd been fighting a war nobody else could see. "Sit." He gestured to the sofa. She stayed standing. "What do you want?" His mouth curved, not quite a smile. "You saved my life tonight." "You're welcome." Can I go now? No. The word landed, like a door slamming shut. Ji-hoon moved closer. Not threatening, just present, filling the space between them with a kind of gravity that made it hard to look away. Why did you warn me? His eyes searched hers. You knew the risk. You knew what my world looks like. So why? Paulette lifted her chin. Because watching someone die when I could stop it isn't something I'm willing to live with. Even if it costs you everything, even then, something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. He turned, poured 2 glasses of water from a pitcher on the side table, and handed her one. My brother has been stealing from me for 18 months. Gambling. Bad debts. I knew about it. I thought I could control it. Paulette's fingers tightened around the glass. So, why is he trying to kill you now? Because the people he owes don't take installment plans. Ji-hoon's voice went flat. He's in debt to the Mexican cartels. Over $3 million. Money he took from syndicate accounts I control. If I die, he inherits. Clears his debt. Walks away clean. And if you don't die, then the cartels come for him. And probably me for letting it happen under my watch. Paulette set the glass down. So, what do you want from me? Testimony. Evidence. You're the only witness. I can't. The words came out sharper than she intended. I'm 3 months from the bar exam. If I get involved in this, testify in some syndicate trial or cartel investigation, I'll never practice law. Background checks, character evaluations, they'll destroy me before I even start. Ji-hoon stepped closer. Close enough that she could see the faint scar above his left eyebrow, the shadow of stubble along his jaw. I'm not asking you to testify in court. His voice dropped, quiet and dangerous. I'm asking you to help me stay alive long enough to handle this myself. How? Ji-suk can't know I'm aware. If he realizes the poison failed, he'll try something messier, public. I need time to dismantle his connections, cut off his escape routes. He paused. And I need someone I can trust. Someone who has no reason to betray me. Paulette laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. You don't even know me. I know you risked your future to save a stranger. His gaze held hers. That's more than most people in my world would ever do. She wanted to say no. Wanted to walk out of this glass fortress and pretend tonight never happened. But Ji-suk had seen her face. And men like him didn't forget. 1 week, she said finally. I help you for 1 week. Then I'm out, and you make sure your brother never knows my name. Ji-hoon extended his hand. She took it. His grip was warm, steady, and when he didn't let go right away, something sparked in the space between them. Dangerous, electric, completely unwelcome. Paulette pulled her hand back. 1 week, she repeated. He smiled. Small, real. 1 week. Paulette went home that night to her studio apartment in Koreatown, locked every deadbolt, and didn't sleep. She kept seeing Ji-suk's hands crushing that vial, kept hearing Ji-hoon's voice quiet, lethal, trusting. By morning, exhaustion had settled into her bones, like lead. She dragged herself to her 9 a.m. criminal procedure class, took notes she wouldn't remember, and checked her phone every 15 minutes, like it might explode. Nothing. No texts. No calls. No black SUVs waiting outside the law school. Maybe Ji-hoon had changed his mind. Maybe he'd decided handling his brother alone was safer than trusting a law student he'd met once. She almost believed it. Then, her phone buzzed during lunch. Unknown number. Your mother's address is 4827 Wilshire Boulevard, Apt 3C. Correct? Paulette's blood turned to ice. She called her mother. Once, twice, 3 times. No answer. She was halfway to her car when the second text came through. She's safe. For now. But Ji-suk is smarter than I thought. He knows someone warned me. And he's looking. Paulette's hands shook so hard she nearly dropped her keys. The third text arrived 10 seconds later. I'm sending security to your mother's building. They'll stay until this is over. You have my word. She wanted to scream. wanted to throw her phone against the pavement and watch it shatter. Instead, she called the number back. Ji-hoon answered on the first ring. "You said 1 week." Her voice cracked. "You said he wouldn't know my name. I underestimated him." "No apology, just fact. He has people at the Obsidian room. They're reviewing security footage. It's only a matter of time before he identifies you. So what do I do?" "Silence. Then, you come here, tonight. I'll keep you safe. I'm not hiding in your house, like some..." "Paulette." Her name on his lips stopped her cold. "He sent men to your mother's building 30 minutes ago. My team intercepted them. But if you go home, if you stay visible, he will find you. And he won't ask questions." Her throat closed. "I'll send a car," Ji-hoon continued. "Pack light. Tell your mother you're staying with a friend from law school. She doesn't need to know the rest. And my classes? The bar exam prep? You can study here. I'll make sure you have everything you need." Paulette closed her eyes. The campus lawn stretched out in front of her students, laughing, studying, living normal lives she'd never get back. "1 week," she whispered. "1 week," he agreed. The line went dead. That night, Paulette stuffed a duffel bag with clothes, her laptop, and 3 casebooks she'd probably never open. She told her mother she was crashing with a classmate to focus on finals. Her mother had hugged her, told her to be safe, slipped $40 into her hand for food. Paulette had smiled, lied, left. The black SUV was waiting outside her building. When she climbed inside, she didn't look back. Ji-hoon's estate felt different at night, less sterile, more like a fortress. He met her at the door, no suit this time, just dark jeans and a black t-shirt that clung to shoulders broader than she'd realized. "Your room is upstairs, second door on the left." He took her bag without asking. "There's food in the kitchen, if you're hungry." Paulette followed him up the floating staircase, hyper-aware of the space between them, the quiet, the way his presence seemed to fill every corner of this cold, beautiful house. He set her bag on the bed in a guest room that looked like a luxury hotel. White linens, floor-to-ceiling windows, a bathroom with a rainfall shower. "Lock the door if it makes you feel safer," he said. "But no one's getting past my security." She turned to face him. "Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "Protecting me. You don't owe me anything." Ji-hoon was quiet for a long moment. Then he stepped closer, not touching, just close enough that she had to tilt her head back to hold his gaze. "You saved my life," he said softly. "That makes you mine to protect." The words should have sounded possessive, threatening. Instead, they sounded like a vow. Paulette's pulse kicked against her throat. "I'm not yours." His mouth curved. Dangerous. "Not yet." Then he turned and walked out, leaving her alone in a room that smelled like expensive linen and safety she didn't trust. She locked the door anyway. 3 days passed in Ji-hoon's estate. 3 days of studying corporate law at his dining table, while armed men patrolled the perimeter. 3 days of Ji-hoon appearing at odd hours, bringing her coffee she didn't ask for, asking about her classes, sitting across from her in silence that didn't feel empty. On the 4th day, he told her about the gala. It's annual. Syndicate elders, business partners, politicians who owe favors. He set a garment bag on the chair beside her. "Ji-suk will be there, and so will you." Paulette looked up from her casebook. "Absolutely not." "He's planning something. Another attempt. I need to draw him out, make him move before he's ready." Ji-hoon's jaw tightened. "And I need him to see that I'm not afraid. So use me as bait?" "No. I use you as proof that I'm still in control." He nodded toward the garment bag. "The gala is black tie. Wear this." She unzipped the bag. Inside was a dress deep, emerald silk, backless, the kind of gown that cost thousands, and looked like it had been designed for her specifically. "How did you..." "I pay attention." Her cheeks flushed. "I'm not going." "Paulette." He crouched in front of her chair, bringing them eye level. "Ji-suk thinks he's won. He thinks I'm weak, distracted. If you're with me, visibly, confidently, it disrupts his narrative, makes him question what I know. And if he tries something there, then I'll be ready." She searched his face. "You're using me." "Yes." No hesitation. "But I'm also keeping you alive. That's the deal." Paulette hated that he was right. She wore the dress. The gala was held at a private estate in Bel Air, sprawling gardens, a ballroom with chandeliers that dripped crystal, and enough security to guard a head of state. Paulette walked in on Ji-hoon's arm, feeling every eye in the room track her movement. She'd styled her hair in a sleek low bun, the way her mother taught her for church. The dress fit like it had been painted on. She'd borrowed her roommate's heels, simple black stilettos, that made her legs look longer than they were. Ji-hoon leaned close, his breath warm against her ear. "Breathe. You look perfect." She didn't feel perfect. She felt like prey, walking into a room full of wolves. Ji-suk found them within 10 minutes. "Hyung," he approached, with a champagne flute in hand. That same charming smile. His eyes slid to Paulette, lingered. "And who's this?" "Paulette Martins." Ji-hoon's hand settled at the small of her bare back, possessive and deliberate. "A friend." Ji-suk's smile sharpened. "I didn't know you had friends. Hyung, you don't know a lot of things about me." The tension between them crackled like a live wire. Ji-suk raised his glass. To family and new friends. Ji-hoon didn't drink. Neither did Paulette. The night crawled forward. Speeches, toasts, laughter that sounded hollow. Paulette stayed close to Ji-hoon, hyper-aware of every glance Ji-suk sent her way. Then, halfway through dinner, Ji-suk stood. "I'd like to propose a toast." His voice carried across the ballroom. "To my brother, Ji-hoon, the foundation of our family, the man who built everything we have." Applause rippled through the room. Ji-suk raised his glass higher. "To your health, Hyung. May you live long." Ji-hoon rose slowly, picked up his untouched champagne flute. Paulette's heart stopped. But instead of drinking, Ji-hoon smiled. Cold, lethal. "Funny you should mention health, Ji-suk." His voice cut through the applause like a blade. "Because I've been feeling much better lately. Almost like someone stopped poisoning me." The ballroom went silent. Ji-suk's face drained of color. Ji-hoon turned to the table, where 3 elderly Korean men sat syndicate elders. Paulette realized. The real power. "My brother has been embezzling from syndicate accounts for 18 months. $3 million. Gambling debts owed to the Sinaloa cartel." Ji-hoon's tone never rose. And when the debt came due, he decided murder was easier than honesty. Ji-suk lunged. Security moved faster. 2 men grabbed Ji-suk's arms before he reached his brother. He thrashed, screaming in Korean words Paulette didn't understand, but felt in her bones. The elders stood. One of them, silver-haired, ancient, terrifying, spoke a single sentence. Ji-hoon bowed his head. Ji-suk was dragged from the ballroom, still screaming. Paulette couldn't breathe. Ji-hoon turned to her, took her hand, and led her out through the gardens, where the night air was cool and sharp and real. "It's over," he said quietly. She looked up at him. "What did they say? The elders?" "Ji-suk is exiled, stripped of the family name. He'll live, but not here, not anymore. And you?" "I remain." His thumb brushed across her knuckles. "Because of you." Paulette pulled her hand away. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Act like I'm something special. I just saw something and said something. That's it." Ji-hoon stepped closer. "You saved my life. You risked everything. That makes you special, Paulette, whether you want to believe it or not." She wanted to argue, wanted to put distance between them. Instead, she kissed him. It was reckless, stupid, fueled by adrenaline and fear, and the terrifying realization that she'd almost watched him die. His hands came up to frame her face, gentle despite the violence still humming through the night. When they finally broke apart, his forehead rested against hers. "1 week, she whispered. 1 week, he agreed. But they both knew it was already more than that. The bullet shattered the window, 10 feet from where they stood. Ji-hoon moved faster than Paulette could process his body covering hers, dragging her down behind a marble planter as gunfire erupted across the garden. "Stay down," he ordered, his voice sharp and controlled. She couldn't see anything, just heard the crack of bullets, shouting in Korean, the heavy thud of bodies hitting stone. Then silence. Ji-hoon pulled her upright, scanning her face. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, unable to speak. Security flooded the garden men in suits with weapons drawn, moving like a trained unit. And in the center of the chaos, held at gunpoint by 2 guards, was a man Paulette recognized from the gala, older, distinguished, the man who'd been sitting beside the elders. Ji-hoon's face went cold. "Consigliere Nam?" His voice could have cut glass. "I should have known." The older man smiled. Blood dripped from a cut above his eye, but his expression stayed calm. "You were always too soft, Ji-hoon, too willing to forgive. You set up my brother, encouraged his gambling, fed him to the cartels, and when he failed to kill you, I decided to finish the job myself." Nam's smile widened. The Kang legacy deserved better than a man who lets waitresses dictate his survival. Ji-hoon's hand went to the gun holstered beneath his jacket. Paulette grabbed his wrist. "Don't." He looked at her. "He just tried to kill us both." "I know. But you're not that man. Not anymore." For 3 beats, the garden held its breath. Then Ji-hoon lowered the gun. Nodded to his security. "Take him to the elders. Let them decide." Nam was dragged away, still smiling. Ji-hoon turned to Paulette, his expression unreadable. "You stopped me. You would have regretted it." "Maybe." He touched her cheek, thumb brushing away dirt she hadn't realized was there. "Or maybe I just needed someone to remind me who I want to be." She leaned into his touch, exhausted and alive. "Let's go home," she whispered. He didn't correct her use of the word home. He just took her hand and led her back through the wreckage. 2 months later, Paulette stood outside the California Bar Examiner's office in downtown Los Angeles, staring at the email on her phone. Notice of character and fitness review. Someone had reported her association with Ji-hoon Kang, filed a complaint alleging she'd engaged in conduct unbecoming of a future attorney. The hearing was scheduled for next week. She'd known this was coming. You didn't get involved with the Korean syndicate and walk away clean, but knowing didn't make it hurt less. Ji-hoon found her that night in his study, surrounded by case files and character references she'd been frantically compiling. "They're going to destroy me," she said, without looking up. 6 years. Gone. He set a folder on the desk in front of her. "Not if I can help it." She opened it. Inside were federal documents, DOJ letterhead, testimony agreements. "You've been working with the Justice Department," her voice cracked, "for 18 months, helping dismantle cartel routes, syndicate corruption, the parts of my world I wanted gone." He crouched beside her chair. "You weren't collateral damage, Paulette. You were the catalyst. The reason I decided to burn it all down and build something better." Tears burned her eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I needed you to choose me without knowing, without leverage." He took her hand. "I needed to know you saw something worth saving." The hearing lasted 3 hours. The examiners grilled her about her relationship with Ji-hoon, her presence at the gala, her knowledge of syndicate operations. And then Ji-hoon walked in. He wore a suit that made him look like what he'd been all along, a businessman. Legitimate, powerful, untouchable. He presented documentation, federal immunity agreements, testimony that Paulette had acted as a confidential source, providing critical intelligence that helped dismantle cartel operations. The examiners deliberated for 20 minutes. When they returned, the head examiner spoke. "Miss Martins, this board finds no grounds to deny your application. Your actions demonstrate exactly the kind of moral courage we expect from California attorneys." Paulette couldn't breathe. "You passed your bar exam. You'll be sworn in next month." Outside, Ji-hoon was waiting. She walked straight into his arms and let herself cry. "You saved me," she whispered. "No," he said against her hair. "You saved me first." 6 months later, Paulette stood in front of her new office in Koreatown. The sign above the door read, "Martins & Associates, Legal Aid. Sliding scale fees, community focus, Everything she dreamed of. Ji-hoon had provided startup capital and investment, he'd called it, not charity. She'd accepted, built her practice, hired 2 associates and a paralegal. They still saw each other. Dinners, late nights, slow mornings in his estate that had started to feel less like a fortress and more like home. He was different now, quieter, the sharp edges worn down by months of dismantling the empire he'd inherited and building something new. Legitimate, import, export, real estate, development, investments in communities the syndicate had exploited. Redemption is expensive, he told her once. She'd kissed him and said, "You're worth it." On a Sunday morning in late spring, they walked through the farmer's market in Koreatown, hands loosely linked. He bought her strawberries. She bought him coffee from the vendor, who remembered her from law school. Ordinary, imperfect, real. "Do you regret it?" he asked, as they sat on a bench, watching the city wake up. "Regret what?" "Saving me. Getting involved. Risking everything." Paulette turned to look at him. This man who'd trusted her with his life, who'd protected her family, who'd burned down his world to become someone worthy of hers. "Not for a second," she said. He smiled. Rare. Real. And in that moment, surrounded by the sounds of a city they'd both fought to survive, Paulette knew exactly what she'd saved that night in the obsidian room. Not just his life, their future,